Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are on chapter 31, verse 6. Moshe Rabbeinu was giving words of encouragement to Jewish people. He's going to be passing away. Yoshua will be in charge. Chizku v'imtzu. Be strong. Al tiru v'al tartzum behem. Do not be afraid of your enemies, the people who will be residing in the land of Israel. Ki Hashem Elokecha hu ha'olech imach. Because God, He is the one who goes with you. Lo yarpecha v'lo ya'azveka. He will not loosen His hold on you, and He will not leave you. I don't know if anyone else feels the same way. This phrasing, Lo yarpecha v'lo ya'azveka, always has taken me for a little bit of a loop. This sounds like it's saying the same thing twice. Lo yarpecha means He won't like slacken His grip on you. V'lo ya'azveka, He won't leave you. Well, I guess if He leaves, He's not holding on anymore. I don't know. It just sounds a little bit redundant. I don't know. So let's just see. I thought it was interesting. Rashi on Pasuk Vav, Lo yarpecha, lo yitein lecha rifyon lios nesav mimenu. He will not allow the grip to weaken so that you would be departed from Him. So Rashi really does sort of learn it as sort of one thing connected to the other, but one thing leading to the other. But the Sforno, I think, is very interesting over here. Sforno on Pasuk Vav, Lo yarpecha, ki yachzik biyadcha beis hamilchama. Lo yarpecha is talking about a time of war. And that was the context in the previous psukim, that God will lead you against these. So Lo yarpecha means He won't slacken the grip on you in your time of war. V'lo ya'azvek, and He won't leave you. Achrei kain. In other words, when it's not a catastrophe, when you're not in the middle of war, He won't leave you then either. In other words, it's not like once the war is over, God will disappear on you. So I thought that was a very interesting shot in this for. It's during war, He'll be holding on tight, and He'll still be there after the war. Okay. Now, the Kli Yakar raises a very interesting point having to do with walking. So I just want to remind you, in the end of verse 6, can you tell I'm on New Year's resolutions? In the end of verse 6, it says, Hu ha'olech imach. God walks with you. Okay, and you know what? I'll let the Kli Yakar bring out the contrast in his words. So, Kli Yakar Pasuk Vav. Ki Hashem Elokecha hu ha'olech imach. Matzinu lashon halacha b'parsha zu b'shlosh hapanim. The mode of walking, walking comes up three different contexts in these psukim. Ki etzu Yisrael ksiv, ki Hashem Elokecha hu ha'olech imach. The pasuk we just read says God walks with you. Mashma machzik biyadcha, matvichacha b'derech telech. The implication is He's holding you by the hand, guiding you as to where to go. Avol b'Yoshua ksiv, v'Hashem hu ha'olech lefanecha. With Yoshua, Moshe Rabbeinu says to Yoshua, God will walk before you. So with the Jewish people, God walks with them. With Yoshua, God walks before him. With Moshe, Vayeilech Moshe b'lo sad klal. Doesn't seem to be a coincidence that the beginning of the parsha wasn't Moshe went, Moshe walked. So Moshe, it's not in God's context at all in these psukim. The Jewish people walk with God, and with Yoshua, God walks in front of Yoshua. Ki zeh domeh l'ma shenemar b'Noach shehaya miktana yamona es v'Elokim hishalech Noach shehaya tzorich sad l'samcho. I'm sure some of you thought of this connection. It's a famous thing said about Noach, that it said God walked with Noach. And that, on the one hand, was great. I mean, it shows that Noach is living with God. But relative to other people who walk with God, the language of walking with God implies that Noach kind of needed God's support for the trip, so to say. Kach Yisrael ksiv etzlam, ki Hashem Elokecha hu ha'olech imach. So with the Jewish people, it says that Hashem, He is the one who walks with you. So God is with you, Jewish people, but God knows you need help. So He walks with you. It's like Noach relative to Avram. God walks with Noach. God needs to walk with the Jewish people. Avol Yoshua, Nemer bo v'Hashem hu ha'olech lefanecha v'hu acharav. When it comes to Yoshua, God walks in front of Yoshua. Yoshua doesn't need the same assistance that the Jewish people need. Jewish people need assistance step by step. God needs to walk with them. Yoshua needs to know the way. So God walks ahead, so to say, but he doesn't need help making steps. When it comes to the patriarchs, it implies that they're walking ahead of God. So that's what it means with Moshe, that Moshe just went. Didn't need God in the picture at all. Of course, he was going by the way of God, of course, but he understood intuitively what was appropriate. So again, just to review Moshe, it's just Moshe's walking his own path. Yoshua can take the steps without God's help, but he needs God in front of him to show him where to go. And the Jewish people need God every step of the way. Amru, skipping a line or two, Pnei Moshe Pnei Chama. Deyat, says the Kli Yakar, is the Pshat. It's a very famous Gemara that compares Moshe to the sun and Yoshua to the moon. So he says, you know what it means? Moshe is like the sun, Chama, She'ena Mikabelas, or Migalgal Achir. Like the sun. The sun doesn't accept light from any other source other than itself. Kach Moshe Heyer B'tzidko Me'elav. So Moshe shone with his piety on his own. Yoshua Kilvana. On the other hand, Yoshua is like the moon. Shetzricha Sad Minorachama. That Yoshua needs to kind of reflect off of the light of Moshe, like the moon off of the sun. Aval Yisrael Nimshalul Kochavim. But the Jewish people famously are compared to stars. Ki Oram Zeir Sham Zeir Sham. Ashetzrichen Sad Godo B'Yoser. If you're relying on one star for light, you're not going to do very well, right? A little light here, a little light there. So you look up, there's a lot of stars, get some light from that, but it's nothing like the moon. So Yoshua provides much more of a light than the Jewish people do, but he is reflecting off of Moshe, whereas Moshe has his own light altogether. Okay. So that's just an interesting thing to think about. Let's go on to verse 7. Vayikra Moshe Yoshua. Moshe called to Yoshua, Vayomer Elav Leinecho Yisrael Chazak ve'emotz. Moshe said to Yoshua, in the eyes of all of Israel, be strong. You will go with the people to the land which God swore to give to them. And you will give the land over to them as an inheritance. The phrasing here is very interesting. Moshe called to Yoshua in the eyes of all the people. Well, if we're talking about calling, it should be in the ears of all the people. Right? So Kli Yakar on Pasuk Zayin, Vayikra Moshe Yoshua Vayomer Elav Leinecho Yisrael. Chikol ha'am hayuroim asakolos Ma'u Vayomer Leinecho Yisrael. Everybody saw the voices. What does that mean? Umau chazak ve'ematz. Why does he say to them, be strong? V'chibo talya, ki Hashem lo yichazek yadov Yoshua ma'u ki yomer lo chazak ve'ematz. In a sense, the Kli Yakar says this statement to Yoshua, be strong, is almost at odds with what Moshe's been saying. What has Moshe been saying in the past psukim? Moshe's been saying, Yoshua, okay, Yoshua's going to hold the wheel, but God is really driving. That's really what Moshe's been saying. So why is he saying to Yoshua, be strong? It's not about Yoshua. It's about Hashem. The Kli Yakar also points out there are some interesting differences between what Moshe says to Yoshua here and what God says to Yoshua. Ki Moshe Amar ki ato tavo es ha'am. The HaKadosh Baruch Hu Amar ki ato tavi. There's a very, very famous difference. Moshe Rabbeinu, the pasuk we just read, said, you will go along with the people into the land of Israel. What God says to Yoshua is you will bring the people into the land of Israel. Umashi Pirish Rashi Shemoshe Omar says, Shkenim Shebedor Imcha Hakol Lefidata Vatsasam Lekach Omer Kiata Sava Valakadosh Baruch Hu Omer Kiata Tavi Bakorcham Tol Makol Vahakal Kod Kadam. Rashi addresses this question. Rashi says, you know what Moshe was saying to Yoshua? Moshe was saying, look out for the board. Do what the board wants. In other words, the elders, they're powerful people, they're prominent people, kind of navigate along with them. So you like going along with them. That's what Moshe's advice is to Yoshua. God's advice to Yoshua is, are you kidding? This is the language of Rashi. Take a stick and hit them on the head, meaning, Tavi, you schlep him along. So that's how Rashi understands that Moshe was saying to Yoshua, you're going to have to kind of make sure everyone is game. And God says, you're going to have to be the leader. That's how Rashi understands the differences. Moshe Amar Esa'am. Okay, so question number one, says the Kli Yakar, is shouldn't we assume that these psukim here that Moshe says to Yoshua are as God's emissary, Moshe speaking to Yoshua? Can't we assume that? So that means that there's a truth in the message that Moshe is conveying. So why would it be that God would convey to Moshe to give a message that God doesn't think is correct? It's according to Rashi, God is basically correcting what Moshe said to Yoshua. Well, if it wasn't correct, why is Moshe saying it in the first place? Why don't you clarify for Moshe what he shouldn't say? That's question number one on these psukim. Question number two, Moshe Amar Esa'am, v'HaKadosh Baruch Hu Omer ki atah tavias b'nei Yisrael. Moshe says you're going to bring the nation. God says you're going to bring the Jewish people. Why that difference? Moshe Amar L'Aretz Shenishbah Lavosam, Tali Rushas Aretz Bavosam. Moshe says you're bringing them to the land that God swore to their fathers. It seems to be all about the previous generation. Kadosh Baruch Hu Omer ki atah tavias b'nei Yisrael L'Aretz Shenishbahti Lahem. God says you're going to bring the Jewish people to the land that I swore to them, to the people. It wasn't about the previous generation in God's version. Moshe said, you will divvy up the land for them. God doesn't say anything about Yoshua divvying up the land. God just says, I'll be with you. All these differences really seem to be something. So again, let's just review all the questions of the Kli Yakar. First of all, he wants to know, why does Moshe speak to Yoshua in the eyes of the Jewish people? Why not in the ears of the Jewish people? Why does he tell Yoshua, be strong? It's about God, it's not about Yoshua. But then he has a whole list of questions contrasting what Moshe says to Yoshua with what God says to Yoshua. Why does Moshe says, come? Why does Moshe say, come with the Jews? And God says, bring them. Why does Moshe refer to them as the nation and God refers to them as Bnei Yisrael? Why does Moshe say you're going to give them the land which was sworn to their forefathers? And Hashem says you're going to give them the land which was sworn to them. And why does Moshe talk about Yoshua divvying up the land and God doesn't talk about Yoshua divvying up the land? The Kli Yakar says that he thinks this connects to the pasuk about Moshe and the rock. That when Moshe makes the mistake with the rock, God says to him, since you didn't believe in me to sanctify me in the eyes of Bnei Yisrael, therefore you won't bring them into the land. Hischa b'Bnei Yisrael v'siyem b'kol. God starts off referring to them as the Bnei Yisrael, the Jews, and then he ends off by saying, therefore you won't bring the congregation into the land of Israel. It's an interesting difference. There were two segments among the Jewish people. Bnei Yisrael, Hem Zera Avram Yitzchak v'Yaakov, Ma'aminim, Bnei Ma'aminim, absolute believers, the descendants of Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. That was Bnei Yisrael. Kahal O Am. So he says, God says to Moshe after the rock, you could have sanctified me in the eyes of the spiritual elite among the people. And because you didn't, you're not going to get to bring the masses into the land of Israel. So Bnei Yisrael and the Kohol, the children of Israel, and the congregation refer to two different sets among Klal Yisrael. We will continue with this Kli Yakar tomorrow, God willing. Again, we discussed the Sforno regarding Rashi and Sforno regarding Lo Yapchov Le'azveka. We discussed the Kli Yakar regarding languages of walking, 3 different languages of walking, these psukim. We began the Kli Yakar regarding this exchange between Moshe and Hashem.